All right, Luca Nation, episode 731, officially in kind of the second season, if you go by that 365 episodes per year. Our official anniversary is third season. You're right. Our official anniversary is my dad's birthday, July 16th. So there's that. Welcome back to Lucas Tigers and Bronzo Mine.
Big Papa Pump.
But
That's it right there. That's what we call you, Dad. Big Papa Pump. No? I mean, that's what I refer to myself as we, you know. I mean, I call him Big Papa Pump. I mean, that's a wrestling nickname.
Good leaders do use we instead of I. It's more inclusive. And that's what we're about here, inclusivity.
That's it. We are very inclusive. And, you know, we are very protective. And speaking of protective, what do you think about position players pitching? Because I'm watching a Yankee game yesterday, and it was a competitive game. You know, middle of the game, it's 2-0 Yankees. Severino is chugging along against the Pirates. The Yankees had just lost the game to the Pirates, so it's been competitive baseball. And they go back-to-back home runs. Donaldson hits one, and Gallo hits one. That dude, he hasn't hit a home run since like a month ago. So it's nice to see him. You know, he's batting like 112. So he hits a home run. It's 4-0. And I'm like, all right, you know what? This game's over. I'll turn it off. I'll go watch some Instagram Live, you know, some hobby content, you know. And Ian comes in this morning. He's getting ready for camp. And he says, oh, man, it was like a football score. The Yankees won 16-0. So I put on ESPN. I watch it. And it was absurd because after a while, the Yankees just start teeing off because Pittsburgh doesn't want to waste their pitchers. They want to waste their bullpen. And they have position players throwing like 62-mile-an-hour batting practice. And Judge hits a grand slam. Aaron Hicks hits a grand slam. Stanton hits one. He just basically like flicked his wrist and it goes out. And I'm just wondering, you know, they changed the intentional walks. You know, that you just put four fingers up and a guy takes first base instead of making a pitcher throw the ball 4 times. You know, in Little League, they do this. It's like 10-run, like mercy rule. Once the team's up by 10 runs, it's done. They don't let the team, even bat. The game's over. It's like cold. Should baseball do something like that? Do you think it's like, you can hurt a position player?
You said you stopped watching the game because it was a blowout. You went to Instagram Live.
Yeah.
I think baseball is – so we've all gone through a stage in our lives where we don't have a lot of money, but we have that first car. First car is usually a beater. But then that first car starts breaking down. You know, the rims aren't working well. The AC doesn't work.
What was your first car?
It was an Astro van. It was my grandpa's Astro van. And I even had plans to rip out the back seats and put like a L-shaped couch in there with a TV. I didn't make enough money to do that.
That's pretty cool. What, you going to watch TV in your van by yourself? Or
I was going to call it the sex machine.
You were. It was sort of like Edward Scissorhands. Like, don't you want a van? You want to be able to afford a van? We should rob the house. You can afford a van.
But there gets to be a point where it costs more to fix that van or first car because there's so many things breaking than the actual thing is worth. And that's what I think baseball is. I think baseball is a beater that's broken and there's too many things to fix for it to be a viable sport in the future. The future is short clips that keep people's attention. Baseball doesn't keep people's attention. Baseball is hanging on by the legacy of America's pastime, Mickey Mantle, all that stuff. But the future, 20 years from now, the kids today do not give a flying F about the sport because it doesn't keep their attention. They care about football. They care about basketball. They care about F1. They care about things that are clippable, engaging, exciting, and keep their attention. Baseball is way too long, and there's not enough excitement in it, and it's going to fade off into oblivion. I think 20 years from now, it's a sport that we don't even talk about. It might not even be on national TV, if we even have TV at that point.
I mean, so I'd be sad if that's true, and here's why, right? I think
to the commissioner.
No. I don't think the commissioner needs to change anything. I mean, I think it's naive to think that the world and the habits of the consumers are linear. You know, 20 years ago, baseball was the thing to do because it was what you did, right? It was a day at the park. It was, you took a family, you had a hot dog. It was, it was entertainment. It was like going out to, for a day of fun at the park.
Now there's way more entertainment though.
Now, so what's considered entertainment and what entertains the current generation is very different. And you alluded to it. I'll actually just hammer that nail home. The youth of today has no attention span.
None.
And that's what makes me sad. What makes me sad is to think that if we're continuing in that linear path, and that 20 years from now, kids are going to have even less attention span, and they're just going to want to consume what? So there's just as viable a thought process that in 15 years, maybe people will look at baseball and say, you know what? We need to take a break from the craziness of life, the rat race, I can only consume content every 30 seconds, and look at baseball as this amazing, refreshing pastime,
if
which is
people
what
were
it's
rational
called.
and logical, yeah.
But maybe the pendulums swing, man. And, right now, I think, what happens? You go on Twitter. 6 months ago, it was everybody making money to the moon NFTs. You know what I read everyone talking about now? Protecting their mental health. Right? The same accounts that were all rolling in the crypto dough are now, I need to take my mental health comes first, and that's great. I'm not making fun of that. But you think about
those
that.
Those are trends, and I don't want to confuse a sport with a trend. I think the mental health thing is a pendulum that's swinging way too hard. Remember Sopranos?
Yes.
Where basically the second half of the first season, him talking to a psychiatrist is considered like the most like, what are you doing? You're putting dude, you can't figure out your own shit. Now, like, not talking to a psychiatrist is
correct.
So
but
I agree with that.
He was also telling her about, mafia secrets and stuff. So
he didn't name anybody.
Yeah, but
he only named Pussy, and he can't. And no, that's the guy's name in the show. I'm not saying that word. I would never say that word.
Can't find pussy anywhere. Best line, dirtiest line for Tony Soprano in that season. I can't find pussy anywhere. It's a line from the show. It's Tony Soprano. He's talking about a person, folks.
I would never say that on the show. We're quoting a movie.
1994 was when I started driving, and it was a 1984 Chrysler Laser. It's a 10-year-old Laser, not LeBaron. My brother would have loved a LeBaron.
Taser?
Laser.
Did you have a friend named Taser?
Taser.
The
Laser. It makes her the most deadliest person in the world with a dodgeball. You can't get past me, man. So
those are the movies that we need to quote, not Christmas Story or Chuck and Larry's Wedding or whatever the stuff you quote from the 40s.
It was Boogie Nights.
Yeah.
What's wrong? You're going to put stuff from the 40s? I quoted yesterday's show. I quoted My Cousin Vinny, which you didn't get. The Godfather.
Not bad. With Ashton Kutcher?
My Cousin Vinny is not with Ashton Kutcher. The punk guy. Are you trying to punk me right now? No, forget it. And then it was Boogie Nights, which I hope you know what that is. But so 84 Chrysler Laser, that's what I got. It was a 10-year-old car. I drove it to school. I took care of it. I dented it a couple times, a couple small little Johnnies with that. Got a speeding ticket. Handed it off to my brother.
With the speeding ticket unpaid?
No, I handed it off to my brother, and he demolished it within, I think, the first month, drag racing it on the side of the highway. He demolished 2 little red sports cars like that.
He's reckless, but it's neither here nor there. Baseball is not going to be around in 20 years.
It's demolished because it's going to get demolished. The beater ultimately gets demolished because you race it. No? Because they're going to ruin it. Pace of play. They're going to ruin the game because they're trying to speed it up. It's going to crash.
It's not speeding up the game that's the issue. It's keeping people's attention. Like, think about what works on Instagram. Do you scroll down and do you have those reels that are like just girls dancing for like 7 seconds? That's all my suggested reels are Addison Rae and Charlie D'Amelio.
Okay, but wait a second. There's a reason.
Don't cut me off. No, dude, my algorithm is sports cards. My algorithm is sports cards.
Clearly not. That's why you don't have. That's why you should have sports cards. You have dancing girls because you're watching dancing girls. That's how this works.
They're lying to you if you think that's how it works. It's how it works. They're shoving that in my face. I don't watch them. I don't follow them. I don't follow either of those 2 girls.
It would stop doing it if you didn't watch it. Obviously, you've clicked on it. You've watched it. You've had the screen there where they're dancing. And they say, oh, he watched this. Here it is. We have to feed him more of this.
Well, if they feed it to me incessantly and I click on it 1 out of 10 and they keep showing me 1 out of 10. But the point is, it's a bunch of these girls that are like tweaking out. It's not dancing, but it keeps your attention because there's these sudden movements. You can't look away. Baseball is slow and methodical. It was from the era where it was basically just radio was entertainment.
Yeah.
And then there was TV, but there was 3 channels, right? Literally 3 channels. So you're like, do I listen to this one guy talk about politics? Do I listen to this jerk off? Or do I watch people play a game? All right, I'm going to choose to play the game. But now you have infinity options. And if you don't keep someone's attention, they're going to go and find something that does. That's why. Did you see the F1 race from the weekend? Not even the actual race, the highlight of the car flipping into the fence.
Yes.
That is attention grabbing. That you can't look away from that. Whether it's good, bad, indifferent, whatever, it's attention grabbing. Dunks on in the NBA, attention grabbing. Hits in the NFL, attention grabbing. I honestly think that's why soccer doesn't do incredibly well either. It's not an attention grabbing sport.
Slow, even though it's short.
What's the sport that's grown the most in the last 20 years? It's UFC. Attention grabbing. Punchy. No pun intended.
Pickleball.
Pickleball is actually interesting. It's kind of rising.
So we'll finish baseball. I'll give you a chance to talk about how your boy Rafa is a big V for,
Dude,
you know.
The Rafa hate is absurd to like an nth degree. If we don't even respect Rafa, the greatest tennis player of all time, playing through a...
He's ducking out. He's afraid of Kyrgios. He's afraid. No, we'll get to that in a second. So baseball.
Okay, sure.
Just to put a little spin on baseball, right? Just to put an end of it, right? It's a shame that people aren't watching it because there are things being done in the sport now that have never been done before. And just silly stats, you know, like, you know, this person, Joker had the greatest stats per PER, 36, blah, blah, blah. You know, like, okay, this is a silly stat, but yesterday, Ohtani, as a pitcher, threw a 10K shutout. He struck out 10 people. He also had 2 RBI, including the go-ahead RBIs, and he stole a base. Right? Like, talk about an athletic freak doing stuff, but then add in this. He has been scoreless for the last 28 and a third innings over like 4 starts. And in those 4 starts, I'm pretty sure he's had at least 10 Ks in all of them. It's something that since like 1913 has only been done a handful of times. And he's given up 1 extra base hit in those 4 games. It's just an amazing run as a pitcher. He doesn't have the home run numbers that he had in the first half of last year, but he's still having an impressive offensive season. I don't care that Aaron Judge has 30 home runs in the team's first 82 games and his first 80 or something like that. And then, you know, he's going to make a run at the Yankee all-time home run record, 61, whatever it is. What Ohtani's doing is amazing, and no one's watching it, and no one's talking about it. And that's a shame. Because I'm not even an Ohtani guy. I don't have any of his cards. I didn't collect his stuff. I didn't buy his stuff. Like, you know, Ian has 1 or 2, you know, just base cards. But what he's doing is amazing, and you're right. No one's paying attention to it. Part of that is he's on the West Coast. They don't get a lot of televised games. Part of it is nobody wants to watch, you know, a 3-hour game. And the fact that, you know, you have to actually do some work to know when he's going to be pitching. That's part of it also. He's only going to pitch 1 out of every 5 games. You know, if you turn on the Lakers, LeBron's probably going to be playing. You know, if you turn on the Mavs game, Luka's going to be there, you know, performing. Whereas you don't know if it's Ohtani. There's a little extra work that goes into it too, which the generation doesn't.
Cage.
Doesn't. Yeah, shoot.
Do you know who Pavo Normie is?
Pavo Normie?
Yeah.
You mean AB Normal?
Mark Spitz?
I know Mark Spitz. Yeah, Mark Spitz is an amazing Olympian. 5
Florence
gold medals.
Griffith Joyner?
Flojo, yeah, 1980s sprinter. Amazing.
How many
American
people do you
athlete.
think that are listening to our show? How about Teofilo Stevenson?
Teofilo Stevenson? No, I don't know who that
How about Nadia Comaneci?
Nadina Comaneci. Yes, Russian gymnast.
The reason I'm saying that is, yes, what Ohtani's doing is incredible. No one's saying that he's not an incredible athlete. And Aaron Judge mashing. All these guys are very good athletes. I actually think the era of Prince Fielder comes to mind and how much more athletic these guys are than, right? The baseball athletes are better.
Oh, definitely.
That's not the point. It's the marketing and advertising machine behind baseball.
So become commissioner of baseball, what would you do? How do you fix it? Because you're going to take this very differently, and it's actually, I think, a very good and evergreen type of conversation we're having here. Because you know what's funny, and I'll filibuster for a minute to give you a chance to think about your answer and actually be, you know, thoughtful about it. Because hear an old head like myself, look, gray hair, what I'm thinking about when it's like, oh, don't let the position players go out there and pitch, right? You got to actually don't shorten the game. Don't end it after 6 innings or 7 innings, right? I'm thinking to myself, well, wait, what about the stats? Like you're taking an at-bat away from Aaron Judge. You know what I mean? You're taking away, the ability to have a game. And why would you, if you end the game in 5 innings and not, the full 9, you're not doing an apples to apples comparison. These guys have historical seasons and they could bat, and this guy could get another hit and have a record. And you don't think about that as much with like basketball, like, oh, load management. Like no one's really comparing basketball, like, oh, the all-time record for most rebounds. I don't even know who has it. You know what I mean? But baseball, those records, they're like, they're people know the 500 home run club was. People know it's 3,000 hits. Like these counting stats across multiple seasons matter. That's what I'm thinking about when I'm like, oh, change the rules. You might not think about that stuff. So you might come up with a rule that makes sense because of the way, you want to see the game played now,
The simplest, and I think it's actually right under our nose. Like you look at these NBA guys, they're on Twitch a lot, right? Playing video games. But what are they actually doing? They're interacting with their fans, right?
Yep.
One, I wouldn't do games every day in baseball. I think it's the most absurd thing. I would just do every other day and free up the day for the baseball players to go out and meet people and intertwine and mingle with their fans. The second thing, so that's the biggest. That's not even close. Like that's number one. You don't need a 4-hour game of baseball every day with 2-hour batting practice. These guys don't want to go. If you're out in the sun all day, the last thing you want to go do is meet your fans and mingle and do the thing. That's why no one knows baseball players. They're just not out in public. They're always at batting practice or at the game or at home preparing for tomorrow's game.
You think so that's the basketball players are out like meeting people?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you just saw 1,000%.
Who?
And whether you're meeting people in public or virtually, it's the same thing. They're using their day off to play video games and using digital technologies. Rip packs. You give them a free day. Take this day back and go build your public persona, because it's naive to think that they're athletes. They're athletes and celebrities, and you have to give them the time of day and incentivize being a celebrity.
I mean, it's never going to happen because the reason why the players and players make the money is because they have 162 televised games. Because the owners make the money, the teams make the money, they get paid the players more. Like,
the engine of the machine is broken. It's one of those things where you know what you want to do, but there's so much money tied up, you can't. The engine is broken.
I mean, I don't know if that's the right answer. I mean,
7 days a week of games is the stupidest thing I've ever heard in 2022. Stupid, beyond stupid.
But so why doesn't basketball just have 1 game a week? Why do you need like 4?
I mean, that's what they do. It works really well. They have a game every other day.
Well, you wouldn't want to watch 7 games?
No.
Why?
No. Quality would fall off. Players would be tired. The reality is, so when you work out, you don't actually get stronger when you're working out. You get stronger in the recovery day. If you're not going to give people any time for recovery, they're not going to get stronger. And I don't mean just stronger as a baseball player. I'm talking about stronger as a celebrity, as a persona, as an influencer, as an opportunity.
I don't think the baseball players need to do that. I'm with you. I understand what you're saying.
Time out. You asked me what I would do as a commissioner. You don't have to tell me what you don't think I should do. You could do it. You could have your own proposal. I don't give a fuck. I don't watch the sport.
So you're going to cut the season. So as the commissioner, you're going to cut the season. Basically, you're going to have the same length of season, but you're going to have half as many games. So that you think that will have these baseball players go out into public.
Maybe
and they're
66%, maybe like 100 games. Yeah.
Okay.
But every other day. 4 games a week is probably where.
What about the length of the games? Any problem with pace of play, speed of play? You try to cut it down to something that's a more manageable, like a basketball game or a football game or anything like that? No?
I think it's one of those things where they think they know there's a problem, but they diagnose the wrong illness. So they think that the issue is too long of a game. I think it's too many games. I think the thing is, and I think about it with our podcast too, Cage, in reality, there's an amazing quote. It's called "Separation makes the heart grow fonder." In reality, too much of a good thing is a bad thing. In reality, the sun sets so that we can miss the sun. There are these things that we can learn from Mother Nature. There's seasonality to it. when you're always there, you don't give people a chance to miss you. Give people a chance to miss you.
I'm pretty sure the sun doesn't set so that we could miss it. I'm pretty sure the sun doesn't ever really set, if you think about it.
No, I mean, come on, be intelligent. Let's have intelligence. The sun sets, and then we see it again the next day.
For you, it does. For the world, it doesn't. The sun is always rising while it's setting for somebody else. The sun's going around the world, my friend. The sun setting is an interesting concept.
Think about it. It wasn't my words. It wasn't my words. It was a much more smarter person than I said this.
What?
There's a reason why.
The sun sets so that you can miss it? I mean, I get it. I understand that. I got to tell you, man.
Your loved one leaves on a trip and it comes back, and how much do you miss them? It happens all the time. We as humans, when there's too much of something, we don't have a chance to miss it.
Okay, so you're saying baseball becomes better because you miss it. The fact that a basketball team plays on a Monday and then a Wednesday, you're geared up on Wednesday because you didn't have it on Tuesday? Yes? You're ready for the basketball game? You want to watch basketball because you had a day off?
I think giving people a chance to breathe, giving people a chance to miss something is actually a very important concept that isn't discussed enough.
Giving somebody a chance to miss something. Okay. Listen, I asked. There'd be a million reasons why that is probably not going to happen, and maybe you're right. They know that the machine is broken, and
it's
that
not
they
going to
can't fix it.
That's why I said my original statement: in 20 years, this sport probably won't exist even nearly in the realm of how it exists now. I think it's a 5, 6, or 7 sport in 20 years if the company's not bankrupt altogether.
I mean, I guess we'll see. We'll all be around, still doing episodes. I think that's kind of silly. I mean, it is the longest tenured sport. It is the one that's been around the longest. It's the one that's got the most history. And I think what you're saying, at least the way that I see it, the history might actually be what's bringing it down. Because the only argument that baseball would have against some of the proposals, some of the things you're talking about, are you can't have 100 games. One, it's greed. But if you take greed off the table, you take the money that they're making off the table, you're saying make less now for the longevity of it. You charge more for 100 than you would for the 160. Charge the same, just more, per game or whatever it is, right? The problem people would have with it, at least what baseball purists would say, is you can't compare a 100-game season to what was before, a 162-game season. The records won't matter. The records don't count. Someone hitting 400 over 100 games is not the same as somebody hitting 100 over 162 games. What's a home run record? Somebody over 100 can only hit 40. You can't hit 60 or 70. I mean, there's a lot of that continuity, that historical season over season, record. And the counting stats, no one would ever really have a chance if you cut the seasons down by 2/3 to catch some of the all-time hits records, to catch some. It's sort of what made.
It's funny, the football purists didn't say a thing though when they just made the season one week longer.
Well, longer is a different story, I think. You know what I mean? Longer is a different story, and they do, right? When they say, okay, we have an extra game or two. If somebody breaks a touchdown record, they're going to say it's over. They'll put an asterisk on it. If somebody breaks it within a season record, sure.
We just saw it.
They just saw it. By the way, do you know the baseball season before, I think, the 60s? I forget what year it was. It might have been 61. It might have been 50-something. It was only 152 games. 154 games. And they expanded it to 162. So when Maris hit 61 home runs to break Ruth's record, for the longest time, when you asked a kid who's got the home run record, you would say Roger Maris has 61, but there's an asterisk next to it because Ruth had 60 in 8 less games. Ruth had 60, 154. They actually expanded the season. So making it more is a little bit different than less. But, I mean, it's interesting, man. If nothing else, I get a glimpse of I mean, you're not young. You're younger than me. But I get a glimpse of how somebody who is younger than me, thinks about the sport. And if people even younger than you think even more like it's an old man sport, then yeah, you might be right. It might be
more trouble than I think. I like this stuff, but it's very easy to kind of poke holes in those career statistician arguments because Okay, well, let me go this route. Will Chamberlain, Bill Russell, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson. They're not even close to as good as LeBron. Or let me flip it. LeBron is not even as close to as good as those guys. They played in an era where there's 25 teams.
Right.
Talent was consolidated.
Yeah, you have to have those conversations. Baseball has found a way to really limit those, you know, it's like, oh, well, these guys, Steph Curry has the record for what, 3-pointers. Oh, okay. Well, you can't really compare that because the 3-point didn't exist. Like that's, I guess, where I'm coming from, right? Because basketball has made changes that made the game more exciting. The 3-point shot, a shot clock to make more offense, to make more possessions. I'm just wondering whether or not there's something like that, I mean,
well, that's a culture of being not pandering to your fans and what they say. It's trying to build for the long term. And you know that some things you're going to try and they're going to fail, and some things you're going to try and they're going to work. So there's probably a million things that NBA did that we don't even know or remember that they tried and it's like, this is stupid. And there's a million things now that we see that they've done that has helped the game. Cage, we had Irving Fryer on. He was drafted number 1, right? In the NFL. First pick overall?
Yeah. He went to the USFL.
He went to the USFL. So there's 2 freaking leagues. That was in 86, 87?
84 maybe?
84. Guys, you have to innovate this. These are businesses and entertainment companies. And if you don't innovate, you die. And to innovate, you can't be scared to fail. You can't be scared to fail. You can't be scared of what this old guy sitting on a bar stool is going to say about Roger Maris's record compared to Babe Ruth, to Bonds, to Judge. If anything, it might even be a blessing.
What's funny is when they changed it all up and let everybody use steroids and, just mash home runs and break all the old records. Now we look back and say, don't let those guys in the Hall of Fame. It's a blight on the sport. It's a black eye. Their numbers don't count. They demolished the record books. But I got to tell you, watching, nobody gave a shit about any other sports.
McGuire?
When that was going on, that was what anybody cared about. That was an amazing summer, And, Bonds, too. Bonds had the attention of the world, And obviously now we look back and say, oh, it's cheating. It was fun. Maybe move the fences
cheating
in.
Because of the way the media portrayed it, right? And who controls the media? The organizations do, right? They decide that what they leak, what they put out. So they went against their players. They put their players under the microscope and tainted their entire reputations.
Can I throw another one out there, which is sort of like tailing what you're saying? The NFL has very likable, forward-facing stars. They've been lucky. They've had Tom Brady for a very long time, right? And just like the NBA has had LeBron, who, say he's likable, not likable. He's got a hell of a fan base, right? People love that guy or they hate him. And then you have other folks, right? You have people they make movies about, right? You have the Giannis story on Disney. You have Luka, coming from overseas. You have, Trey, the villain, blowing up Madison Square Garden. And you have, the same thing, football, Patrick Mahomes and his weird dancing brother. And you have like all of these, like names and personas. I guess maybe we know them because they have more time. Maybe you're right. Baseball, we had Griffey. We had McGuire. Like, I don't know who, even Judge. He's kind of vanilla.
But you don't know their personality.
Who's the guy?
You don't have a chance for them to develop. Like Iguodala was on-air personality while he was still playing.
Yeah, nobody gives a shit about Iguodala except you. But baseball, like, it's Mike Trout.
I don't think most people would agree with that. I think people respect Iguodala's voice.
Andrew does this often. Guys, put in the comments. Does the fact that Andre Iguodala has an off-court persona make you want to watch the NBA? That's the question of the day, because that's where I'm going.
You're a lawyer. You know how to ask questions to get the answer you want. That's not the question. The question is,
we're saying the personas.
If you give players the opportunity to do media and press instead of having stuff that they have to do every single day, will that let personalities develop?
Yeah, but no one's
We
going
think
to
of a
care about
person-
Brandon Crawford. I mean, I bring up, Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes and Luka and Giannis and LeBron, and you have now for the 6th straight episode brought up Andre Iguodala.
You don't know who you're going to care about because you don't know whose person. I guarantee you ask our
You
audience.
still have to be a star.
You could be a star player, but you could be a star personality too.
Right, but you need both, is what I'm saying. Like, Iguodala's not a star
Kendrick
player.
Perkins is not a star player, and he's a star personality, even though I don't like him or agree with anything he has to say.
He's a commentator. He's not advancing the ball. He's a very different story. He's retired. So is Charles Barkley, who was retired. He wasn't doing it. These guys weren't doing that while they were playing. That's what you're saying.
J.R. Smith? I don't know.
You're talking about doing it while they're playing. That's the difference. When you were, you're commissioner of baseball, you're saying give these guys a chance while they're playing, not after they retire. Pat McAfee was not a star. He's a star now, but not doing what you're talking about. You're talking about giving guys who are playing a chance to go out there and be stars. I kind of like it because, no one knows Mike Trout. And maybe that's on purpose. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't want to be but baseball, part of the problem is that there are no stars. We talked about this. And maybe your idea allows stars to blossom. I mean, it's hard to root for the sport. It's hard to root for a team. It's hard to root for these people if you don't know anything about them, and it's hard to become fans of them. I get it. I think you're probably right. Interesting stuff, man.
Were you in law school? Is public speaking mandatory? Like, does everyone take that class? It doesn't. Right?
There's no public speaking class.
There's no public, but you're naturally a good public speaker, right? Is that fair to say?
I'm not fearful of speaking in front of people. Yeah.
Your brother, good public speaker?
I think he can speak in public. Yeah. I mean, I've never really.
Joel, good public speaker?
Yeah.
Have you met people that weren't good public speakers?
Of course.
Have you met people that weren't good public speakers at first, but they honed their craft?
Not
to say
really.
No is naive, Cage.
Not really. I mean,
to say no is the most naive thing I'll ever hear. But you could say, because you like to do that. There's people that with the opportunity, they hone their craft, they improve. So the reason we don't know how good these guys are on air is because they're not given the opportunity to get reps and improve and do a ton of press. Go on ESPN, go on Fox Sports 1. And maybe for the first year, he's so awkward.
I don't know,
but
man.
Then he starts to develop.
You've done the 731 times. You're still kind of shit at it. So
exactly.
It's not
but I'm
naive.
better than I was. But I am better than I was.
I listened to the first couple weeks. I mean, I longed for that. You had an energy to you. You had a desire instead of just going through the motions. Maybe you need to take a day off so we can miss you.
Think about that, though.
I mean, maybe people want to miss you. You know who I'm going to miss?
Too much of a good thing.
I'm not going to miss Rafa. Quitter. Man. What a guy, man. Just goes out there, goes out, has to go to 7 sets, just to beat this Fritz kid, 12th ranked player. And he put up a fight.
Fritz has the best serve on tour.
Fritz put up a fight, even had an awesome clippable piece where he's falling down, and hits the ball. It was real nice. I mean, I'll give Rafa this. I don't watch tennis. That match was awesome. That 5-setter. That was awesome.
Why do you think Rafa gets a lot of, universally, Cage is not just trolling. A few comment sections, Twitter, Instagram, and Score app, people said this, and I was so surprised how, just maybe because people love Fed and they remember Fed and they still has that. The disrespect towards the greatest tennis player of all time to me is really surprising.
So I heard, it's funny, man. It's recency bias. I think it's part of it, and tennis also has one of those history things. After his match, I heard the folks sitting, it's 2 women and a man. I don't know who the hell they are. I don't know if it's Rod Laver. I don't know who the hell they have, the commentators. It's not Kendrick Perkins. But the guy says, the woman's like, oh, we're going to see this Nick Kyrgios, and it's a matchup, and they give the whole deal. And he's like, I don't care about that. After Rafa beats him, we are going to see the greatest tennis matchup in the history of tennis. It is the most important, the single biggest matchup in the history of tennis. And the woman was like, are you insane? Like really? And she kept saying, really? This is the biggest matchup in the history of tennis? It's the biggest matchup in the history of tennis? Now, what the guy should have said when she was pressing him was...
Who was she talking about? Which matchup?
So what he should have said after that was, well, have we ever had an opportunity to watch a finals, if it breaks that way, where someone with 20 majors plays against someone with 22? And the answer would be no, that's never happened before. And if Djokovic and Nadal would have made the finals, that's exactly what you would have seen. And I assume that's what he meant, right? But instead, people are looking at those two, and the historians, the people who watch tennis, the matchup of Djokovic and Nadal doesn't really sound like the greatest matchup ever of two male tennis players because of the history of it. But from a counter stat, it's right. There would be 42 majors between them. That would never have happened. That kind of matchup has never been seen. But
it would have been the great match. It would have been extremely long points.
It would have been a great matchup. But what he was saying is it's the greatest of all time. And of course, people will say, what about when Agassi played Sampras? What about when, this guy played? It's almost like what you were talking about with, compare LeBron to Larry Bird to Wilt and the different generations. I will say this. Why I think Rafa is an interesting guy is I had a conversation maybe 10 years ago about Federer. And the guy, I was at a cigar lounge, maybe it's more than 10 years ago. And the guy was making the argument that Federer was the greatest tennis player of all time. And that he had the majors and he was going to have more majors than anybody. And the argument that I made at the time was that he needed an opponent. And that sometimes to be the greatest in a sport, you have to have an adversary. Bill Russell and Will Chamberlain, right? Jordan Bird or, Magic Bird, you have to have that adversary. And at the time, Nadal was just the guy who was beating him in the French Open. And Nadal wasn't the guy. He wasn't the one. Djokovic was really young. He might have won one or two. It was almost like I think Sampras, or there was somebody still like Roddick, Murray, like there were a bunch of guys, but Fed was doing it, and there was nobody really pushing him. Even like Tiger had Phil Mickelson, there was always that one. When Nadal got better and started winning, Federer was sort of, I believe, kind of tailing off, and Djokovic was Nadal, the tough part about Nadal and why he gets a little bit of hate is I think people look at him and say that he, first of all, he's won a lot of French. But besides that, like he was beating Federer after Fed's prime. And Djokovic is not really thought of as 20 majors. But if you ask tennis people, people who don't watch tennis, name for me the 10 greatest tennis players, I would bet my testicles that 9 out of 10 of them won't even say Djokovic's name. They don't even know who he is, even though he's got 20 majors.
Cage, 10 years ago, maybe 9 years ago, the greatest match was Federer versus Djokovic at Wimbledon.
Yes.
It was the greatest match I've ever seen. I was driving home from Vegas, watching it on my
That's
smartphone.
a single match. And you're right.
Federer
Nadal,
is the most beloved, but
people love him.
Federer's record versus Nadal is 16-24. Federer's record versus Djokovic is 6-13. Federer can't beat those two guys.
But the matchups are interesting. Well, people get up for different matchups. Like if you look at Kyrgios, the dude's never been a top 10 player. But do you know the only top 10
talent?
But you know the only top 10 player he has a losing record against is Nadal in head-to-head. He gets up. He gets up for the top matchups. When he plays top players, he has a winning record against all of them. And Nadal in majors, he's down 2-1. Like this, it would have been
a winning record versus Djokovic.
I believe so. Yes, and this is what they were saying yesterday. So against the top 10 players, he is winning record because he just gets up. He doesn't play him that often because he's not. If he played those top 10 guys,
yeah, he has 2 wins versus Djokovic. Djokovic has never beat him.
Yeah, so it's an interesting thing, right? So people do get up for those matchups, but it would Rafa tennis. What's funny is what we're talking about like giving chance to miss and playing too many games. He would have only had 43 hours after his match to get ready and the whole deal. After that grueling thing, he's already had like abdominal pain. He already had injuries coming into this. He just went through this gauntlet of a match. As soon as he was done, you knew this was a chance because his post-match interview, they were like, "What do you think of your next matchup?" And he's like, "Let's see if I'm even going to be able to get there." Like, he said that on the court after his match. So
he's the most when he plays, I think you see he leaves everything out there. I don't think you could question his will. So when a guy's talking about him, this is what I hate. I this is a little personal for me. it was always the same way for me. Like I was never a complainer when I got injured in soccer, but when I did and I talked about it, it was so few and far between that I was called that same thing. And I'm like, if I never talk about it when I am actually not feeling 100%, can I confide in the people that are supposed to support me?
Yeah,
the guy gives 100%. Do you think it's hit? Like, why would he want to? Like, the whole thing doesn't make any sense, and it's just a blatant disrespect for someone who I think is a class act. He's like just a class act. He always.
I mean, I haven't done the research on it, but I'd be curious to see how many people make it to the semifinals and withdrawn. And I think, over the course of his career, and this is anecdotal, it's just, I don't have the numbers to back it up. He seems to withdraw a bunch, and maybe that's just the way things are now.
He grinds every point. Have you seen how other people? Have you seen how Kyrgios plays? He serves underhand. He doesn't run points out. So okay,
but he got to the same spot, right? They would have gotten to the same. So Nadal grinds it out.
Kyrgios has not gotten to the
right
same
in this
spot.
tournament. They did. They were about to play each other, even though Kyrgios is playing, hitting the ball between his legs, and Nadal's grinding out every point. But now the grind out got them to the same point, and he's got to retire. He's got to not play.
The grind out got him to the same point plus 23 championships.
22. Well, yes,
22. Fine.
Yeah, but that's not for this tournament. He's bailing out now. People are being robbed of that, and I guess you can say it's because he grinds out the points and that he has nothing to prove and he doesn't owe it to anyone in the whole 9 yards. But ultimately, it's the way that I would look at it is if you watch the NBA and you watch the Western Conference Finals. And Tatum comes out afterwards and says, "You know what? I just left all of it on the floor in Game 6 against the Bucks. I can't suit up for the finals." People would be giving him shit, right? I mean, people would say, "Wow, he's a grinder. He played 4,800 minutes this year. He played more minutes in the postseason and the regular season than anybody's ever done in the NBA." But guess what? That grinding, now we don't have him, and we're going to lose.
It's not the same.
Why?
And it's not the same because, and this is interesting. I'm surprised people don't talk. Tennis, what makes tennis so interesting, it's you are alone. You don't even have a coach, which is
makes
really
it even worse, right?
Like you have no one to rely on. So when you gut through stuff in a team sport, you could do other things. You could maybe defend, but your shoulder hurts, so you won't take as many shots. Or you could rely on Jaylen Brown. You could be a playmaker instead of a shooter. You won't drive to the cup as much, but you could change your game and rely on other people. Tennis is so fascinating. You don't have a coach. You have no one else to rely on. So if you're not feeling good, what are you going to do? What are you going to go out there for?
I mean, I get it. You're bailing out. You're quitting. That's the way I look at it.
As opposed to that, why don't we flip it? And this is a guy that has gone through injury, come back. He's everything that this sport should be about. I mean, to give the way Rafa plays is incredible. He gives every single point he plays. I've never seen him. I don't know what's the word. Lackadaisical. Like he plays every point like it's his fullest. And here we are when he says he's injured. We diss him. It's utter disrespect. I've never seen anything like it.
I mean, I don't think people are dissing him. I think people are questioning whether or not, it's not a motive thing and it's not a grinding thing, but it's, tennis is interesting, man. You got to match up and then you move on. It's, tournament style, right? And he had enough to beat this kid Fritz, but because he had to use it all, he now can't play anymore. I don't know what the rule is there.
Understand what? Well,
does Fritz get to go and play now?
No. You have you ever sprained your ankle?
Of course, but why shouldn't they let Fritz play now? Because he lost, right?
That's a different story altogether. Why could Fritz not beat an injured Nadal? How about that?
That's a good question.
The guy had an abdominal.
Man, he was beating him. But what's funny is he started to look really good after the second set. They were even saying it during the match. They were like, "Wow, he doesn't really look injured at all. He's really turning it on." Which I guess is what you're saying, that Rafa, that he can play through the stuff, but he's not playing through it tomorrow.
Well,
so it's
when you sprain your ankle, a lot of people play on a sprained ankle, and then after the sprained ankle, the next 2 days are actually worse pain than when you're playing through a joint.
Don't take the shoe off, right? Leave the shoe on. Don't take the shoe off. Yeah, same thing. The boxers, you could break your hand and continue to fight. in a round or two, it'll numb up and you can throw it as hard as you want. But afterwards, it's going to hurt. Yeah.
And if boxing was tournament style, as opposed to having 6 months of a breakaway before you,
Yeah, you'd be done after that. Yeah.
Whether Fritz should play, I'm all for it. Let him play. A little different episode today. What do we got? 45 minutes. We'll be back with you guys tomorrow. Kind of
baseball and tennis. Baseball and tennis. Woof. We made a whole episode of baseball and tennis, Andrew. How do we do that? Baseball and tennis.
What? Well, we'll cap it there. 45 minutes. Good episode. A little bit more debate style. I think you guys actually enjoy that.
They do.
Any final words?
Yes, I love you. Because people are going to send me messages and be like, "Are you mad at Andrew?" I'm not mad at Andrew. I love Andrew. Andrew's the best. Sometimes we give each other shit. We talk to each other every day for now 2 years and change doing these episodes. I love the guy. Sometimes I give him a hard time on the show. Hugs if we were in person. So
they side with you because you're like a trained assassin. You're Liam Neeson.
It's not side. Actually, I get a lot of stuff. They're like, go easy on him. He doesn't know your movies. Or, go easy on him. He's a kid.
Well, no, you're a trained assassin with words. That's what it is. You're very good at, like,
what's funny is most of our audience, I think, is probably going to agree with you. Because the baseball arguments...
Doing that for 365 episodes times 2.
I'll let you have that one. But it's funny, man. If you peel back some of the the money and the history, some of the stuff you're saying about baseball actually makes a lot of sense. For me, I'm like, I don't even want to hear it. You can't even do those things. It can never happen because the history of the game. But you might have to have some short-term pain for what you're saying, long-term gain. It's real interesting stuff, man. Love it. Good episode.
Way to end on a compliment. Thank you. Now I'm endeared, and I forgot all the other stuff that happened the previous 45 minutes. That's the key, guys. It's not how you start, it's how you finish. So when you're fighting with your the real lesson, fighting with significant other, anyone, debate, and with a compliment, they'll forget all the other nasty stuff.
I'll tell you this. The sun's about to set. So you'll miss me. Until it rises tomorrow. I'm the sun, pal.
Oh.
So thank you all for listening to another episode of Lucas, Tigers, and Bronzo Mai. I wanted to tell you about a new service that we have starting as of today, and I'm really, really excited to bring it to you guys. So as a part of our partnership with SGC, we got 50 free submissions every single month, and many of you have taken advantage of that. And it's amazing that we could have the opportunity to 650 episodes, 675 episodes in, to go ahead and give back to our community. As people were sending those cards in, they asked, can we send 5, 10, 20 more cards to you guys? We'll pay for it, but we wanted them graded with SGC. You guys know SGC is turning cards around in 13 to 14 business days, have incredible customer service, and their secondary market values are going up day after day after day. And that's exciting for the hobby and exciting for the grading landscape. So we didn't want to just rush into it. We wanted to do it right. And what we did was I relocated here to Boca Raton, Florida. I opened up a P.O. box maybe 5 minutes away from SGC, and I will be hand delivering and hand picking up the cards. So you don't have to worry about anyone else touching your cards. It will be me, and I will update you every step of the way. So here's how it's going to work. I'm going to personally pick up the cards from a P.O. box, prep them, new card saver, new penny sleeve, and deliver them to SGC every single Tuesday. Why Tuesday? Well, it lets the stragglers over the weekend come back through on Monday and gives me a day to prep, and it basically gives SGC the entire week to work on grading those cards. Once your cards pop, only then at the end of the process will you be paying for the service. It's $25 per card, simple as that, and the turnaround times have never been faster. We're hearing right now 13, 14, less than 20 business days. So there it is. 9170 Glades Road, number 135 is the P.O. Box in Boca Raton, Florida, 33434. 9170 Glades Road, number 135, Boca Raton, Florida, 33434. Of course, you could shoot me an email or shoot me a text anytime, and I'm always available. Many of you already have my email. It's iamandrewgoldberg@gmail.com. or my cell phone number, 215-519-9299. 9154. Reach out with any questions. I could walk you through the process. I've hopped on the call with quite a few of you, and I'm happy to do that. Love you, Luca Nation.